So I want to start by thanking everyone who said wonderful things about my previous attempts at putting my little recorder on the aquarium and talking to the little box. And I just felt really supported in just being able to put something out that didn't have to be perfect or all together or um, right or good or 100% in order for it to have value for people. And so I really want to thank everyone who took the time to write to me with my previous videos and say, hey, that looked great, or subscribe to me on YouTube, because my desire to continue to push this edge for myself of talking to the little box on top of the aquarium um, and just stretching myself really was supported by the reflections that I had. So my name is Katie Weatherup, and I'm a shamanic practitioner, and you can learn more about my work at my website, which is handsoverheart.com. And I'm using this video kind of as a shamanic musings kind of thing, where I have some things that I'd like to talk about and some ideas that are alive for me. And it's just kind of a fun way to share them and to offer them in case that they have value for other people. And so the one that's alive for me right now is an idea of core values in your life in the sense of what really matters to you. And I'd love to spend some time articulating what this looks like for me, because it's something that I think some of the people who are drawn to work with me or are part of my community share to some extent or another. I feel like the people I'm most aligned with have a similar value, but it's kind of a subtle one. It's not the easiest one to articulate, and so I feel like there's some value in putting it into words and then being able to identify it. And I think the better that we understand what we most value in life and our decision-making process that follows out of that, as well as being able to spot that in other people, is really helpful. Anybody who's spent some amount of time with me knows that I'm a huge fan of working to dismantle places that were holding judgment of other people. So getting out of the business of saying, well, this is right and this is wrong, and instead going, oh, wow, this person is working on a different value system than I am. This other thing is more important to them. And it's really good to live in a world with people with a lot of different values and interests. You know, if everybody were as keen on travel as I was, the places that I want to go would be far more crowded when I got there, and, you know, that just wouldn't be as fun. It's great to have people who are passionate about a variety of things, because we can benefit. You know, I'm not particularly drawn to learn about plumbing, but I love living in a world where we have, you know, skilled plumbers. And you know, despite having a degree in mechanical engineering, you know, not that I would anyway, it's more of a civil engineering thing, but I'm not really going to be building buildings or roads. That's not interesting to me in the same way that shamanism is. But hey, it's great. I love getting to live my life in the comforts that can be created by, you know, indoor construction. When I travel, I get out as much as I can onto the land during the day, as remote as I can go, and fling myself on rocks and have an amazing day. And then I really like to come home to a place where I have a bed and indoor plumbing and a roof over my head, and the bugs are as much on the outside of this enclosure as possible. And if we didn't have the civil engineers and we didn't have people who were passionate about building things, then that's an experience that wouldn't be available to me. So one of the things that I really treasure in my life is the experience of what am I creating with my life experience. And so I have a little bit of a strange perspective compared to other people, because I do so much work with past lives. I'm aware of my own past lives, and a lot of times the key to my clients' healing can be found in other lifetimes. So the healing that they need is about releasing, you know, things around stuff that happened in other lifetimes. For example, I worked with a client who wants to get pregnant, and she's really ambivalent about the choice. A part of her is really wanting to have a baby, another part of her is, you know, not interested in that at all. And when I did the journey, the guide showed me, well, she's had past lives where, she had a lot of children that she couldn't care for, and that was really hard and not very pleasant. And she had lifetimes where she didn't have children and really longed for them. And so in trying to come into the decision for this lifetime, she's sort of being haunted by the hungry ghosts of the past. And so cleaning up those past lives gives her the opportunity to be really clear in her choice. In this lifetime, because we're blessed with a lot more choice than a lot of our ancestors had, a lot more options and a lot more decisions that are available to us. But if we don't clean up some of the past life, we can end up sort of locked into that. So when I think about my life this lifetime, one of the things I'm keenly aware of is there are more shiny options than I could ever possibly enjoy in the course of my life. There's just, it's such a diverse world. You can study so many things, with the internet. You have access to so much information, so many ideas, so many experiences. To travel, a few hundred years ago was a huge commitment. I back in the days when I was singing in a Celtic folk band called the Wild Oats, there was this beautiful song, Kilkelly, Ireland, and it's sung as a series of letters from a father to his son, and the son has immigrated from Ireland over to America, and it's obvious that there's this deep love bond between the father and the son, but they're separated, and the only contact is through these letters. And just the awareness of, the commitment that it took to cross the ocean. It wasn't like you could, you could go home to visit, but the amount of resources and time and energy, didn't make it the whole, okay, I'll hop a flight and, however many hours later I'll be pretty much anywhere in the world. We can get almost anywhere in the world within a 24-hour travel period. And that's amazing, and it wasn't available to our ancestors. So I treasure the fact that within a single lifetime I can experience so many different places and climates and pieces of land and the energy and the magic that they hold, and that can all be woven together as part of the life experience of a single lifetime. And a lot of people are entranced by a similar thing and creating similar experiences. And it's this wonderful gift, and I can have all of that without having it be at the expense of a bunch of other things. So if you were, for example, a trader in another lifetime, you might get to see a lot of different places, but you wouldn't necessarily get to have the deep relationships with community that other people were experiencing, because you would literally be spending all of your time getting from one place to another in order to create these experiences. And so in a modern world with so many choices and so many options and so many ways that we can spend our energy, it's really helpful to have a compass of what really matters to me, what's going to give me the most satisfaction, the most joy in my life. And for me, it's a balance between the joy of the moment, because, there are times when, that ice cream cone is just the most delicious, wonderful thing ever. And there are times when, going to play in the park with my friends is the most delightful. And there's that balance between the more long-term things, like, how am I saving up my money, and how am I managing my financial resources, and how am I taking good care of myself? And again, people who've spent time working with me know that I'm all about creating balance. We live in a society that has a lot of value in some ways that it places on things that are out of balance. So you see exercise programs that are about, this extreme, we're going to completely tone your body and you're going to work incredibly hard and then you'll be, in this place. So rather than saying, yeah, go take a walk for half an hour 3 times a week and do some core exercises, we have this, work out for hours at the gym 5 or 6 times a week. It's this really out of balance place. Or we have diets that are like, okay, you're gonna, never eat any carbs again, and you're gonna have all of this, and rather than having a balance that says, yeah, it's wonderful to have all of these great things that really nourish the body, and these other things that are delicious, and where's the balance that your body most thrives in. So I think there's this balance point that's different for everyone, and we're bombarded with all this information about all these different ways that we can care for our bodies and tend for our bodies, and there's less emphasis on going inside and saying, where's the point where I really thrive? And so, I have a sweet tooth. There are days when I, love having something with sugar in it. And at the same time, I keep a lot of balance because I don't want to undermine how much my body's thriving, how healthy I feel during the day, how good my energy is. And there's a certain amount of sugar that will not significantly impact that. And then if I tip over that line, it begins to make a really big difference. And so I'm all about being really intuitive and in tune with my body so that I can find that balance. It's the same with activity. I adore people, but I actually fall on the introverted side of the scale. And so for me, downtime and alone time is really important for having the opportunity to really enjoy and cherish the experiences that I have with people. I'm not going to enjoy the life experience I have as much if I cut into getting enough sleep, or I cut into having enough quiet, unfocused time. And so there are all these balances I'm creating. And one of the things that is really alive for me in terms of how I move through the world is this value that I place on investment in my soul. So some people talk about, investing in your 401k, and I do that. One of my dad's big pieces of advice, he had three major ones. It was, check the oil in your car, floss your teeth, and invest heavily in your 401k, from the very beginning when you first start working. And of course, there's so much more that I take away from my relationship with my father because, he modeled an incredible array of amazing things. But it's amusing to me that those were the life lessons that he picked to hammer into my head. And, they're good ones. I do floss my teeth, and this is excellent. And I actually am not real good about checking the oil in my car, but I take it in for oil changes regularly, and I'm no longer driving the cars that I was driving when I was growing up, where you could quickly run out of oil because they were a little on the leaky side. And I did invest in my 401k. And at the same time, one of the things that I'm choosing to invest a lot of energy in is how, at the end of my life, because I know that, there's nothing in the physical world that I'm going to take with me at the end of my life, but my experience is that the soul continues on. And I have a lot of just experience of this in my life, in my personal life and in my professional life, of the fact that even though our bodies will cease to exist in this form at a certain point, our soul will continue on, will reintegrate with our higher self, will move forward. And so part of what I invest in is how am I situating my soul in a way that it will be set up so that it can go forward in the most amazing possible way. So when it comes to investing in my soul, there's this sense of how can I come to the end of my life and have made the most of my time here, however long or short that may be. And one of the ways that I define that for myself is how have I worked toward health? So where are there places that I'm still holding on to pain from the past, energy from the past, especially past life things? I feel like a lot of us drag around all this baggage of, the lifetime where everyone we loved died in the plague, or the raiders from the next village came in and killed off a bunch of people, and these are horrible experiences. But we end up carrying them with us when we couldn't process the pain or the grief. And so I work on being as skillful as possible about when I do have a grief process or I do have emotions, even though it can be my least favorite thing in the world, how can I really dive into those? How can I really work with the emotions so that I can move to the other side? So that's one piece of that process. And I work with, where can I invite healing and growth and make sure that on a soul level I'm letting go of things. And so on a real pragmatic day-to-day level, this looks like doing things like Byron Katie work. So I get myself out of my stories, and if I have a relationship that doesn't go the way that I hoped, I don't make myself bad if I have a period of time where I'm angry at my ex-partner, I'm angry at someone who I had really high hopes would participate in a certain way and got really disappointed. I honor that that's part of what I'm working with, but I don't consider myself done with it until I can be in neutral mind with people who I experience getting very hurt in our interaction. And so there's always this celebration when I can look back on someone that there was a lot of emotional charge around and say, oh, well, I'm in neutral mind. I don't have strong feelings about them either way. I'm at peace with what happened. I took the lessons that I needed to. I wouldn't have my stomach knot up if I bumped into them again. And this is pretty advanced work. So again, there's a lot of gentleness with, these things happening in their own time, but just recognizing that there's still more healing to do. And so I spend a lot of energy investing in how am I participating in the world, how am I moving my energy, how am I letting go of old pain, how am I helping other people to do the same, because I think there's an incredible quality of life that's a payoff for this because of these precious moments that we have on earth with this array of choices. The more that efficiently we clean up our old history, whether it's trauma from our childhood or whatever, from other lifetimes or self-limiting beliefs, the more progress we make, the more we free up the ability to play in the world, to just enjoy the life experience that's available to have. And one of the things I also really value and treasure and hold on to, and it can be an anchor for me when I'm going through a darker time, when I'm having a moment where I feel really overwhelmed by my life. I think it's the nature of a woman that a lot of times we have a certain rise and fall of our emotions. There's a certain emotional weather that can move through, completely independent of whether anything is right or wrong or good or bad in our lives, where we have times when we're on top of the world and everything feels marvelous. We have times when we go really yin and internal and into stillness, and we can feel tired and worn out and like we don't want to go take on the world at that moment. And so I think that there's just a natural rise and fall, and there are extremes on either side. So certainly, it can drop deeper into depression when it's sustained, and that's something that it's really good to address directly and work with. And if it swings into the manic side of things, then, there's a crash off of that. But within the realm of a woman who's really healthy but simply has a capacity to feel deeply, there's going to be a certain rise and fall to emotionality. And one of the things that sustains me when I'm in a time where I'm sort of in that swing where the emotions feel heavier, or that sustains me when I'm in a celebratory place and I'm just looking at the gratitude for my life, is I think of it as sort of a scrapbook for the soul. And it has to do with holding these moments of life experience that stand out on their own as this amazing moment without necessarily having context to the story that was going on in the time, what came before, what came after, who I was with on the trip, any of those kind of things. So an example of this is being in the middle of Stonehenge at dawn. I've had that experience twice, and it's just this amazing moment where I got the tickets early enough so I could go in with this small group of 25 other people, and and it's a huge site, so you have the ability to just be there connecting with the stones. The energy's really fresh. It's first thing in the morning, and walking among these magnificent stones as the sun rises. It's this amazing experience, and that is something that I treasure, gets to be part of my personal scrapbook. Dawn at Machu Picchu, having gone up there and then watching the sunrise over the mountains and being sitting in this magnificent place. Getting to hike out to where the lava was flowing and be within a few feet of live, actual, streaming red hot lava, and the primalness of the energy. Being a shamanic practitioner, there's a certain bias toward these moments that were just filled with getting to experience some kind of energy in a really deep, profound way. There are also things that I'll hold with sexual connections, and again, these scrapbook moments from my life are ones that are independent of whether I stayed with the person, or whether they broke my heart, or whether I broke their heart, or whether the energy flowed this way or that way, or we had a good time or a bad time, or there was tons of drama in the relationship, or any of those kind of things. It's the holding the moment of that experience that I had with them that was absolutely amazing. Just this amazing gift of a life experience where I could feel something really deeply. I could have this experience of joy and connection and not have those moments mean anything about who this person is meant to be in my life or where we would go or what our destiny path would be, but just go, wow, that was a really rich, beautiful moment. And it can be a little harder with partners because if the relationship didn't go the way that you hoped and there were hurt feelings and there was a lot of frustration, we can end up kind of throwing out those wonderful scrapbook memories because the overall feeling is frustration. And if we're still trying to get ourselves free of a relationship that isn't healthy and doesn't serve, like you could have an amazing connected moment with someone who's an addict, but I wouldn't recommend building a relationship with them. And so dwelling on those scrapbook of the soul moments of like, oh, but there was that time when we were in Monterey and the wind was over the ocean and it was so beautiful and I felt so connected to the pulse of the ocean and the man who was holding me. You don't want to dwell on that if you're trying to extricate yourself from a relationship that really doesn't serve. But again, when you've come into that neutral mind and you've done your healing, I think it's beautiful to go back and reclaim those moments and say, whatever it was or it wasn't, isn't it precious that this got to be part of my life experience? And so the invitation that I'd really like to offer is, what would go into your scrapbook of the soul? What are these moments in life where you just felt this incredible joy? Here's another one of mine. I have this amazing relationship with my sister, and when I get a particularly strong reflection of how connected I am to this other human being, it makes my heart really happy. So when she says, there's no one in the world who makes me feel as good about myself as you do, and she's this amazing woman, so it's easy to reflect back, that she's phenomenal. She just, she's just absolutely amazing on so many levels. She's bright and funny and charismatic and can tell a hell of a story, and she's has her doctorate in physical therapy, and she's a captain in the army, and this amazing wife and this amazing mother. So she gives me a great deal of material to work with in terms of reflecting back how wonderful she is. But when I have that reflection, I go, wow, I get to give this gift that is the one that I'm suited to give. Because if you want help moving, I'm not going to be a really good person to help you with that. I'm not. I don't really like manual labor. I'm not really good at lifting, heavy things. Sometimes I can be a total klutz. You probably don't want me carrying anything that's that breakable. But if you're going through dark night of the soul, I can be a really good ally for that. And so to have one of the people that I love most in the whole world have the gift that is the one that I most love to give be one that is received with depth and meaning, that's so incredible, because there are people that we can love very much, but the gift that is most meaningful for us to give just isn't the one they want to receive. And it doesn't make anybody wrong, it just makes it a mismatch in that regard. And so I really just want to invite you to go inside. I don't have children, but I imagine that there are moments as a mother or a father where holding your baby in your arms and seeing this new life and looking into their eyes and seeing the infinite of a newborn who's still, so connected to Source at the same time that they've just come fresh and new into a physical body. I imagine that is really an amazing moment. That's one of those pieces that go, oh wow, this is something I get to have as part of my life experience. And there are just tons of things that I don't get to experience. And so there's an invitation to sometimes think about your life as though you were just looking back and going, wow, what a rich life I've had. And it's a measure, I think, that has a lot of value in a society that likes to keep score with, well, what have you accomplished? What are your achievements? What degrees do you have, or how much money do you have, or how much have you disciplined your body into this particular way of looking? There are all these different, very external ways that people can get caught up in understanding their value. How attractive am I? How much money do I have? How important am I? How much status do I have? and I totally honor people for whom that resonates. You know, it's just a different life path than the one that I'm walking. And at the same time, for the people who do resonate to saying, you know, there's something that's really core and important. You know, when I stepped away from my engineering job, I absolutely made the choice that I value having time more than money. So I would rather have a lower standard of living than what I could support as an engineer, but not be bound to be up in the morning at a certain time on a lot of days. I can set my own hours, and I can have so much choice about how I spend my time and my days, and I get to do work that I absolutely love, and that is absolutely precious to me. I love it. And at the same time, you know, I also have a need for security at a certain level, so I make other choices where, you know, the people who, you know, just trust in spirit and sleep on other people's couches and just know that everything's going to be provided, I can see the beauty of that. And for me, having my nest and my home and that sense of stability is something that's also really a value. And it doesn't make anybody right or wrong or better or worse, but I think it's very valuable to understand what really matters to you, so that you have a yardstick to look at, you know, how are my choices lining up with what I truly value? And if you find that they're out of sync in some way, then looking at course correcting. So for me, I'm so much stronger in the mental and the spiritual than I am in the physical, and yet this year has really been about committing to bringing my relationship with my physical self into a stronger place. So I've been getting a lot more exercise, and I've been eating a lot more organic fruits and vegetables, and I've been just tending to that aspect of myself, because I want to live a really long and healthy life. My life rocks. I love it, and I treasure it, and I want to be creating a sustainability to the best of my ability. And so looking at how do I you know, engage in self-care in that regard is really good. And if I find that I'm out of sync with that, without making myself wrong or bad, like, okay, wow, if I haven't exercised in a week, what's going on with me? What do I need to do? How can I course correct? And, you know, all things being equal, if I have a head cold, not such a good idea, but, you know, all things being equal, what do I need to do to support myself in coming back into alignment? And so I think having that compass and holding it gently is really useful, and recognizing that it's not the mainstream compasses for measuring a life well lived may be really out of sync with what your core values are. And so taking that opportunity to, you know, to really look at those questions is wonderful. And I think it creates a lot of gratitude when I can look back on a relationship and say, oh wow, I remember this moment on my first date with this person who it didn't work out with, where, you know, we're out in the desert and we're looking over this incredible valley, and he has his arms around me, and he was doing some really amazing body work, and we were just really reveling in the fact that we'd stumbled into this place where there was this instant soul connection, and wow, we were both entranced with seeing that unfold. And it was a chapter in our lives. It wasn't the be-all and the end-all of us being together forever, but I can still go back to that feeling of being on the cliff with this person in this experience of joy, and really cherish that, and really value that, and go, oh, it's so cool that that's in my scrapbook of experiences. And put it right next to, you know, being on the side of Mauna Loa on the big island of Hawaii after dark with my best friend in the whole world, Mara Clearspring, and have us both gazing up at the stars. And it was so dark and the air is so clear that there were more stars than I've ever seen in my whole life, and they looked so close, like you could almost reach out and touch them. And that feeling of having the star energy so much closer and so connected was amazing. And so anyway, these are some invitations I want to offer, because I think it's a wonderful way to be in an experience, to live an experience, and to find what you really value and cherish in your life. And even if you are having a rocky path in some way, you know, one of my dear friends, you know, was dealing with a lot of health problems, and she says, you know, I have had an amazing life experience, and she says there all these times that I did the thing that was not the smart, responsible kind of thing, but it was sure a heck of a lot of fun. And she has more stories than anyone else I know of these amazing life experiences where I would have missed out because I would have gone to bed at the point that I was that tired, and instead she was like, no, power on. And there was a price. There was a price for what her body went through in that approach, but she's lived this life of all this hedonistic pleasure and travel and deep connections, and her experience is at being with peace with, yeah, and there was a price to that, and at the same time, you know, she's lived more experiences than, you know, any other 3 people I know, and that's a pretty amazing thing, even if it did end up, you know, shortening the overall duration of her life. So anyway, these are just some things to look at. I'm counting this as an opportunity to have some shamanic musings and to offer them for whatever value they may have for you. So thank you for your time and attention. Again, my name is Katie Weatherup, and you can find more of my work, free articles, information about my sessions, all that sort of thing at my website, which is handsoverheart.com. Thanks so much.